Today, we're diving into a really core concept in Christian thought, the fruit of the Spirit. It's an idea that gets right to the heart of what spiritual growth is all about and, what it actually means to transform your character. But let's kick things off with a pretty challenging question. What if becoming a better person, more loving, more patient, more in control, wasn't actually about gritting your teeth and just trying harder? Well, the whole concept of the fruit of the Spirit really pushes back on that idea. So what are we talking about here exactly? The fruit of the Spirit comes from the book of Galatians in the Bible, and it's this list of 9 qualities, love, joy, peace, patience, and so on, that all together are meant to paint a picture of a truly Christ-like character. Okay, this brings us to our first really crucial point, and honestly, it's a detail a lot of people miss. We're not talking about 9 different fruits here. We're talking about a single harvest. So why are we making such a big deal about the number 1? Well, in the original Greek text, the word used for fruit is karpos, and that's singular. It means fruit, not fruits. Now that might sound like just a tiny grammar point, but trust me, the theological implications are huge. I love this quote because it just nails the idea perfectly. These 9 qualities, they're not a menu where you can say, I'll take a little patience today, but I'm going to skip the gentleness. No way. It's much more like they're all different facets of a single diamond. Each one catches the light differently, but they all belong to the same stone. So the bottom line here is that this isn't about trying to develop a few isolated virtues. It's about cultivating one single complete harvest of character, where all these qualities grow together, which, of course, raises a big question. Where does this harvest even come from? And that question leads us right to our next big idea. The source of all this growth. Does it come from inside us or from somewhere else entirely? This is really the difference between the Spirit and the self. This slide just lays out the contrast so clearly. The Bible sets up this big comparison between the fruit of the Spirit and the works of the flesh. And you gotta notice the key difference. Works is plural. That suggests all these scattered things we do through our own human effort. But fruit is singular, which points to a single organic growth. One is self-made, the other is Spirit-given. And this, right here, is the central claim. This kind of deep character change doesn't happen because of sheer willpower. It's described as something that's produced in a believer by the Holy Spirit. It grows naturally, like an apple on a tree, not built piece by piece like a brick wall. But hold on. This doesn't mean you just sit back and do nothing. The source material makes it really clear that a believer has an active role to play. The idea is to keep in step with the Spirit. So it's less about straining and struggling to produce the fruit yourself, and more about staying connected to the source that actually does the growing. Okay, so if this fruit is supposed to be a reflection of Christ's character, what does that actually look like in real life? Let's break down these qualities and see them in action. First up is love, or agape in the Greek. We're talking about a selfless, sacrificial love that you would extend even to your enemies. Then there's joy and peace, which aren't about just having a good day. They're described as this supernatural stability that can guard your heart even when life is chaotic. And patience, it's about resisting that urge to lash out when you're provoked, reflecting a God who is slow to anger. Moving on, we have kindness and goodness, and these aren't just warm, fuzzy feelings. They're demonstrated in real, concrete acts of service. Gentleness is a measured, gracious response. It's strength under control, not weakness, and it's modeled after Jesus himself, who was called gentle and lowly in heart. And finally, self-control is about having mastery over our own desires, all guided by obedience to a higher will. So when you put all of these pieces together, it becomes clear that this fruit isn't just a to-do list of nice behaviors. It's meant to be the visible, outward evidence that something has fundamentally changed on the inside. All right, let's bring this home. Why is this concept such a big deal, such a cornerstone in Christian thinking? Well, it really all boils down to 2 key ideas: growth and assurance. First, the fruit is the goal of a process that's called sanctification. That's just the theological term for the lifelong journey of becoming more and more like Christ. And second, it serves as assurance. The real, tangible evidence that can confirm a person's faith is the real deal. So let's look a little closer at that idea of sanctification. The appearance of this fruit, the love, joy, peace, all of it, is seen as the visible goal of the spiritual life. It's basically this signal of victory in that internal struggle against what the text calls the works of the flesh. And on that point of assurance, well, this is absolutely crucial for a believer who's wondering, how do I know my faith is real? Well, according to this theology, it's the consistent, even if it's not perfect, growth of this character in their life that provides that confidence. It's the proof in the pudding, so to speak. The logic here is captured in this simple, really powerful analogy. You know an apple tree is an apple tree because, well, it bears apples, right? Not thorns. In the exact same way, the source argues you can recognize a genuine Christian life because it has to eventually produce this specific kind of character. And that really gets to the heart of the matter. Authentic faith is never just a claim you make or some outward show. As the source says, it's an active, effective force that inevitably changes a person's character and brings forth good works. And so we end with a question that turns this whole theological concept right back on us. If this singular fruit, all of it, the love, joy, peace, patience, and the rest, is the true evidence of a transformed life, then what does our own character, our own fruit, reveal about us? Thanks for joining this explainer.